request on the anniversary of President Chávez's death. I remember it very well. In fact, I remember the various times that the Global Women's Strike went to Venezuela while Chávez was president. And it was a really extraordinary movement, an extraordinary revolution which he led. Now, as it was mentioned, this is a week of International Women's Day. And the movement in Venezuela, the revolution in Venezuela, was very much a women-led Venezuela. People have spoken about the various missions that were going on for literacy, for healthcare. And those missions were led by women. When you went to the neighborhoods, it was always women who were the majority and who were taking responsibility. The same happened when they had a referendum against Chávez to try and bring him down. I think people will remember that there were many, many attempts by the US and the right wing, the elite, the escuálidos, as they were called in Venezuela, to bring Chávez down. One of them was a referendum, which we won, and which the Global Women's Strike was one of the international observers during the referendum. And it was extraordinary how women in the neighborhoods had mobilized to get people out, to make sure that people came out to vote for their president. It was also extraordinary, I'm sure many of you have seen the film, The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, which is again an extraordinary documentary with all the interviews, and it's so clear that Chávez was not only a great leader and an example for so many countries around the world who wanted to stand up to the US and to imperialism generally, but he was loved. He was really loved. When you went to a meeting that Chávez was going to speak at, the response from people, especially women, was extraordinary. People just adored him. They felt Chávez spoke for them. And that was especially true of the most grassroots women. So, it's a tragedy that Chávez died 10 years ago, and many people have said that he was murdered, that he was probably poisoned, including someone I spoke to from the Venezuelan embassy believed that. And quite frankly, that would not surprise us, because so much was invested by the US and by the EU to try and get Chávez out. They just could not bear to have a really world-class leader who was on our side, who was on the side of the people. I want to mention that's what they're doing with the bank, in order to starve Venezuela, in order to ensure that the legacy of Chávez and the revolution that they have not been able to defeat crumbles. That is what they want. I want to mention they have not succeeded. And the fact that they have not succeeded, despite so many years of so many ruthless efforts, tells you a lot about the strength of that revolution. Just like it tells you about the strength of the Cuban Revolution, which was the first to back Chávez when he won the presidency. Cuba was there to stand against the US, and Cuba had a lot to do with the revolution in Venezuela succeeding. We must give credit where credit is due. I want to mention two other countries and two other world-class leaders, two other revolutions. The first one is Haiti. I'm sure you have read in the news the situation in Haiti, and how the US and Canada and France are plotting again to send troops to Haiti. They want to occupy Haiti again. Now, Haiti has suffered because of its revolution in 1804, the first black republic, the first to abolish slavery, and therefore an example for the whole world, especially for Latin America, for the Americas, in fact, for the whole of the Americas. Since then, Haiti has been persecuted. And I want to remember today Jean-Bertrand Aristide, who was like Chavez, who is alive, but not a president, and who is like Chavez, a most loved president. The US did 2 coups against him, the second in 2004, and forced him into exile. And it took 7 years of struggle to get him back. He is back, but not as president. And as a result of that, the whole country has disintegrated because of US and UN occupation. And now they want to send troops in because even the puppet governments they have put in power have not been able to stay there because the movement against corruption, against political corruption, and against the violence that the US has instituted in Haiti has not allowed them to govern. The movement in Haiti is extraordinary, and the odds against them are just phenomenal. So we must remember President Aristide, and we must also remember, the Sister Betty just spoke, what has just happened in Peru in December. The coup that was supposedly happened through Congress, and we understand that the US president was meeting with the ministries of energy in Peru just before the coup and just after. Because one thing that Castillo had promised was that people had to benefit from the mining of their own resources. And that is one reason why they wanted him out. So the same forces that are behind the sanctions and the sequestering of the gold by the Bank of England are against all of us, wherever we are from, when we stand up to them and we demand our forces. On International Women's Week, I say, ¡Viva Chávez! ¡Viva la Revolución Bolivariana! ¡Viva Chávez! ¡Viva el pueblo haitiano! ¡Viva el pueblo haitiano! ¡Viva el pueblo peruano! ¡Viva el pueblo peruano! ¡Hasta la victoria! Venezolano y todos, y las mujeres en particular.
¡Viva el pueblo cubano! ¡Viva el pueblo latinoamericano!
El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. ¡Viva Chávez!